Okay. Tonight, I'm going to be looking at Jean Klein, and I'm again looking at his book, Listening. And some of you may have heard this essay before, but I'm going to repeat it because I think it's very timely. It was written in 1993 by Jean, when the European Union was officially established. So he's talking about unity. However, this applies to all facets of our being. It applies to nations, and it applies to us personally. How do we create and live in unity, especially when people have different views and different opinions? So I think Jean does a really nice job here. And also it's kind of a little bit of an overview of non-duality as well. So here he's saying, the underlying reality of all human beings is one consciousness. My glasses. Manifested in very similar ways, whether we are black, white, yellow, red, or British, German, Belgium, French, we all have the same body structure, the same liver, the same breathing systems, and these are affected similarly by the same fears, anger, hate, jealousy, sexual urges, anxieties, and so on. The body can be treated universally. The psyche and the soul can be healed in universal ways. Humanity is profoundly one. We are in any case united. We only need to be aware of it. Now, there are two aspects to the unity that I mean here: actual oneness, and multiplicity in oneness. The most important is the recognition that our very home ground, our origin, is one. It is not a composed oneness, but actually is oneness. It is called by many names: consciousness, stillness, our original nature. It is present when all aspects of individuality are absent. All aspects of individuality are absent. We know only the qualified I, as in I am English, I am French, I am a lawyer, a man, a woman. But our original nature, which we have in common with all, is where the I stands without any qualification. This unqualified I is presence, consciousness. The unqualified I, taken alone by itself, is presence, consciousness. It is our home ground, out of which all phenomenal existence arises and into which it returns. Before we can be united or even truly related, we must accept intellectually even before we have the living experience of it, that our home ground is one. This is the only a priori conviction that can ever work in solving conflict in our world society. It is the only workable structure because it is the only truth. Out of this truth comes authority. Truth is the only sovereign. Truth is ethical, functional, and aesthetic. It is the fundamental knowing that consciousness without objects is our original nature, and that to take ourselves for individual personae is the sole cause of conflict and suffering. At some point you want to say?
So powerfully written. It's just so clear and such just truths, just pure, unadulterated truths when he speaks. Read the last part again, please.
Truth is the only sovereign. Truth is ethical, functional, and aesthetic. It is the fundamental knowing that consciousness without objects is our original nature, and that to take ourselves for individual personae is the sole cause of conflict and suffering.
But so many people in the world don't know their true being. Look how few people you can say across the globe have know their true being, or don't even know that they don't know their true being, right? And so truth is really up against it in that stack of a deck. Go ahead.
Well, I think what's most important here is that, yes, when he says we take ourselves for individual personae, we take ourselves for separate individuals. That's the me. Mm-hmm. That's who we believe we fundamentally are. And because that is who we've identified ourselves as, who we believe we fundamentally are, is why there is so much conflict and suffering.
So where does he go from here?
Every undertaking of a human nature must have as its background that which binds everyone together, which all have in common, which gives support to the phenomenal world, consciousness. The expression of this deep conviction is love, openness, humility, and the seeing of facts as they are, not the seeing of the products of wishful thinking and illusion based on the misconception of the existence of a personal entity.
Wow.
Okay, so seeing things as they are, seeing facts as they are, and not from the viewpoint of this personal me, is then then the way of knowing the truth of every situation. Mm-hmm. And the answer to the problem in every situation. when I look at it without the viewpoint of the me, but look at it just purely from the facts of the situation, then there's a clarity that comes that helps in meeting the situation. So, true thinking comes from non-thinking, from silence, from stillness, from this background. Thinking that comes from thinking is obviously based on memory, on past conditioning. And all thinking that is creative must be fresh, new, and free from preconceptions. It is not thinking that can change society, but a looking away from thinking. When we take ourselves for individuals, we take ourselves for a fraction. No situation can be clearly seen from the fractional point of view. No facts can be clearly put on the table when clouded by the idea of the person. In the absence of a personal entity, the situation unfolds in all its possibilities, and the facts are presented. The person can never bring a solution. It is the situation itself that brings its own solution, the right solution. It may not be pleasant for the ego, but it will be ethical, functional, and aesthetic. The truth is never personal. Right thinking, right acting, and right feeling are not personal. So, I mean, he goes on. I don't know if you'd want to stop at this point, if you want to say anything or have any questions or comment,
Well,
or if I should continue.
why don't we just see where he goes next? Because he's given us a great diagnosis of the
Yeah.
situation. Let's see
Okay.
where he goes
Okay.
next, and then we'll throw it
Okay.
open.
Okay. In observing the seed of truth, unity will evolve inevitably, not as something constructed by the mind in an arbitrary fashion, but as an organic happening. Our deepest desire is to be united. If it is not today, it will be tomorrow, because it belongs to the survival of the human race to unite in peace. When the perspective is clear, all practical issues will be resolved. Economic and political unification cannot take precedence over, but is a result of a clear perspective based on the oneness of humanity. The second aspect of unity is multiplicity in oneness. The great majority of conflict is caused by psychological survival. The attempt to protect one's ego or national ego in its many forms and extensions. In the absence of the person as chooser, judge, compare, there is a welcoming of life and all that life brings. Each person and each nation must come to the understanding of this underlying principle we call love. It is an experience without an experiencer. When the experiencer is absent, there is no more conflict. Differences are faced purely, functionally, without psychological involvement. Differences are respected. When one nation faces another nation with historical, not psychological memory, it appeals to its greatness, its richness of culture, language, tradition, and so on. It is the dynamism of a country that keeps it alive, virile, powerful. Otherwise, it calcifies and loses all vitality and interest. In any case, true culture belongs to no one and to all. I just want to back up a minute. When you could say when one nation or one person faces another person with historical but not psychological memory, that's when we're able to see each other new. Because we meet a friend that we've known for many years, but we haven't seen for a long time. We meet the friend and we do have a history with that person. But when we look at that person, not from the psychological images that we may have created about that person or about ourselves in relation to that person, we can see that person new in this now moment. And I think that's what he's proposing here. So it is in learning about and respecting the great thinkers and artists of one's own country that one can learn to admire the culture of other nations. Basing unity on economics is doomed to failure because it emphasizes the object rather than its origin. In a society based on acquisition, on greed and consumerism, a species of competition is born, which has nothing to do with creative production and beauty. But when we live intelligently, without anticipation and end gaining, the roots of our society will change. Now, he goes on. I'm not sure if you'd like me to stop at this point or do you want me to continue?
Well, what's some of your reactions?
At this point.
Well,
if not, I can continue.
I just want to say, so, he's again pointing out what could be, what could be if there were not the clouded consciousness of personal identification that gets in the way of seeing truth and right action in every situation. That's what he's describing. It doesn't have to be this way. It could be different.
Well, yes, I don't know if it's what could be, but rather what is
What emerges.
when we don't have this personal viewpoint. But I think I should read this because it may be important. A new renaissance is only possible when art and science, culture, is an offering to the ultimate. Without a feeling of the ultimate, it is not possible to create a cultured and happy society. By the ultimate, I do not mean a personal or conceptual God. Although this was a beautiful pretext for creativity and offering in the Renaissance, today's God language is purely conceptual, a nuisance which prevents new knowledge and new discovery. God can only be discovered, never attained. Because God is not an object to obtain. The European God is a sleepy person responsible for two great wars. Today we must find what is beyond objects. And to find it, we have to look where thinking cannot take place. Each one of us must find our true nature, not based on contrived morality and beliefs. It is this true nature which is the only sovereign. Sovereignty based on self-image, religious, political, or any other, is completely hypothetical, an illusion. It will inevitably bring conflict. Real sovereignty is not based on competition and self-image, but on knowledge and love. It is the superiority not of others, but of oneself. Well, this is, I just have a short paragraph and it's finished. Perhaps I should just finish this. Ultimately, when we have acted on the principle that binds us together as human beings, there will be no nations, but the cultural traditions will remain in all their richness. When our wrong thinking, a thinking that's based on acquisition, is righted, we will live in offering and openness. The new Renaissance will be based on what is actual, on real knowing, not the accumulation of fundamentally unrelated facts. When we no longer take ourselves for an image, inevitably arguing with other images, there will be no more talk of blending the practical with the spiritual, because the spiritual is the only practical way. Nothing else works.
You know, so I hear him describing, this is a bad way to put it, the conditions for the flowering of goodness. Krishnamurti talked about the flowering of goodness, and he's describing what is, if we would get our egos out of the way. And the image that came to my mind when I was listening to this was when we watched the Mars rover launch, and then when they got the news that it had successfully landed, and they all burst out clapping and congratulating one another. To me, it looks like this team of people that worked selflessly, selflessly to put together and cooperatively solve the problems to do this wonderful, wonderful thing. It's like a little mini example of what could be possible. Imagine governments sitting around and putting through plans that benefit the people, and then and all being happy that we just launched a program that's going to lift a lot of people, instead of the dogfight we have now. But anyway, that's what I was. What's somebody else's reaction? Anybody have some thoughts?
Well, I could say something.
Sure, Rosine.
It's back to something very practical. One of the examples that was used, just because I can imagine doing it, was meeting an old friend, or someone you know really well, like even your child, and just seeing them fresh without all that baggage, or like all the advice you'd like to give them, the ways you'd like to change them, like that, everything I think I know about them, and just really notice something new, or really, really listen.
Right.
Because I know sometimes, like, I meet someone who's just really curious, usually somebody who doesn't know me, and we're so curious about each other, but like, and it's so refreshing when
Yeah.
somebody just open and interested, and like Paul was saying, like, that's an act of generosity and goodness, to be fully present for another human being.
Right.
Yes.
Go out in my room and see like things that I just know, like see it in a new light or a new perspective.
Right.
It's such a great exercise.
That's right. Right.
I like to just add to that. I notice sometimes, like when you meet old friends and so on and so forth, that I find myself not so much into trying to understand what they're saying in the communications, but I'm running through my files, and I'm running through my criticism, and I'm critiquing the situation. And I've catch myself at times saying to myself, why don't you shut up and listen to what he's saying or she's saying or something? And it's very interesting that I have a bit of a problem. It's difficult at times for me to completely ignore a history of like this one guy in the corner over here. We have a history of about 70 or more years of friendship, to completely ignore all that I know about him and all the experiences that we've had and so on and so forth. And that can interfere in sometimes understanding what is being presented in the moment. It messes up what's happening right now, because a lot of what happened in the past is conditioned my brain, and I'm not seeing the reality. In fact, Krishnamurti, that's one of his key points, is that the only way that you can see reality is when you don't use the eye to think through what reality is. You see it as it is, not through the filter of the me or the I. And that's something that I think Klein is implying also.
Right, definitely.
That in fact, some of it almost reads like a rewrite of some of Krishnamurti's ideas. But that's really, to me, that's really the key. Is to me, it's really all about understanding how our thinking is, to understand the function, how it works, the mechanics of it. And once you get the mechanics of it, then you can see it happening if you use some self-awareness. So thank you, Rosalind. I appreciate. I can relate to what you're saying to that.
Well, when we meet a friend that we've known, or a relative that we've known for many, many years, and he says there's a history there, I don't think he's saying forget the history. He's saying watch the psychological memory of it. See, there's the factual memory of a relationship,
The factual history.
the factual history, which is has a memory, right? But it's the feelings underneath those facts that are the psychological memory that we hold.
Mhm.
So that if in the past you've hurt me in some way, and it's a painful feeling, when I meet you, I'm meeting you not only with the fact of what you said to me that hurt me, but I'm meeting you with the feeling, that same feeling, even if it was 10 years ago or 15 years ago of that hurt. It is that psychological memory that he's asking you to have awareness of and to empty. And then we see that person new in the moment, even though we do have a historical memory of facts that we both experienced. You see the difference, I think, right? Because it's really important. How can we see each other new if we're carrying around all the psychological memories of what you said to me yesterday or what you said to me 5 years ago, and the hurt that it generated?
I think another factor involved in this thing is the conditioning that we've been exposed to ever since we came out of the womb, which it more or less all right, all right. And I grew up when in a family where mama and papa, when something was objectionable, you holler, you sound off, and you use a loud voice to express certain feelings. You know, it was very vocal. I have another friend who was quite different. His background was quite different, and he's very, very calm. I think I've seen him, and I have a history with him as long as I have with this other gentleman over here. I think I've only seen him get mad once or twice, and that was in driving situations where that was his Achilles heel. Somebody cut him off, he became a tiger, and he would try to, you know, even score, if you will. So I think a lot of how we react is how we've been conditioned, and it's hard to see that condition. But I think I think I have to make an effort to really understand that in many situations, I can't really get to the bottom of it. I try sometimes, but it's part of the conditioning that I've, not only from my family, but from, you know, centuries and centuries of this is the way things are done, and so on and so forth. And I think I think that's something that might help in understanding, you know, what reality is. To see reality always is, just that we don't see it because we're seeing it through the eye.
That's right.
So anyhow, that's it.
That's right.
Yeah, Charlotte Joko Beck, who's a modern day Zen priest, she's passed on recently, but she was famous for saying that relationships don't work. And so after you read that, you're sort of offended by it. What do you mean relationships don't work? What are we supposed to do then? But her point was that whenever you're expecting something from your partner, expecting a quid pro quo or something out of the relationship, it's doomed to fail. So that's been, to me, sort of something I try to keep in mind in my relationships now as best I can.
Right.
Try not to expect anything of the other person. It's what can you offer or give.
You know, that's a cardinal point of really, you know, this whole concept of pleasure and desire. You know, that's our whole way of being, where we're constantly, that's what we live for. We live for, you know, a pleasurable event. And the difficulty is, which I'm trying to understand, and is that, you know, pleasant things and unpleasant, you want to get rid of the unpleasant things, but they're the same coin, opposite side of the same coin as those things what we want. You know, pleasure and pain are together. When you seek desire, when you seek, eventually it's going to turn into conflict. You know, it's going to at some point stop. It's going to change. You're going to want more, and you get on that swing, or you get on that seesaw, and that's been an eye opener for me to get an understanding of. Because I really see that as a basis, part of the basis of this whole problem with relationships with people, with how I form opinions of people, and how that whole structure works, not to my advantage. And the ridiculousness of it is, I think I am being advantaged. I think I am doing the right thing. I think I'm being clever and all the rest of the thing. And of course, the secret always is I am, and it's and I.
Right. So
Can't win.
But just to go back to what you were saying for a minute, Bill. So she was saying that don't have expectations. Just
Exactly.
right. Just see what you can offer and you can give. And by doing that, your needs, which usually fuel expectations, right? Your needs will get met naturally in the ground that's created when you're not looking to get, but looking to give.
Right, and really, do your needs really need to be met? I mean, is this not the ego? Is this not, you know? Can we just live with that uncertainty of not having our needs met? I mean, that can be really terrifying. Can we just, you know, sit with it?
So doesn't that then mean that in a relationship, if we see ourselves as an object, the me is an object, right?
Yep.
And we see the other person as an object, then it's a relationship object to object. In that relationship, there are expectations that needs are going to be met. And when they're not met, we're very angry or hurt or disappointed. And when they are met, we feel so good, and it's happy, it's pleasurable. So what are we really fundamentally wanting in a relationship? What are we looking for? If it's to truly be united, if it's truly to see, I don't know how to put, if it's truly to see the other person without an image, to see the other person without an image, to see the other person as he or she is, without any preconceptions or conclusions or opinions, and to know ourselves without an image. That's probably what reflects true happiness. See, I think in an object-to-object relationship, we're looking for pleasure. And pleasure can feign happiness. In the moment, it feels like happiness, but it doesn't last. It's so fleeting. But when we're fully present, and when we're able to be without a me in that moment of relationship, there is a joy that pleasure can't even touch. And I think that's fundamentally what we want in all relationships. A wanting it's a reflection of our true nature.
Yeah.
Which is what we're trying to wake up to live with, to live by, to recognize.
However, there are some fundamental needs in a relationship. Not personal needs per se, but human needs.
Okay, yes.
Human needs for affection, for comfort, for warmth, for connection,
For honesty.
for an honest, human, warm, affectionate connection. That's a basic human need. No matter how disidentified, perhaps to the degree that I am disidentified with my ego is the degree to which I will get in touch with and manifest that quality.
But that's just the point.
Right, that's what I'm saying.
I think
But-
that's when he said it happens organically.
Yes,
It can't be
yeah.
forced.
I'm only just registering the fact that there is a basic need.
Yes, so what is the basic need? Here in this essay, he said the basic need is to be united as one.
I couldn't agree more.
And that's the same
right.
thing in a
yeah.
relationship,
Yeah, definitely.
to be united as one,
mhm.
because we fundamentally are one.
Mhm,
Yeah.
To know that,
mhm.
and that happens organically, and needs get met organically and naturally.
Yes, yeah,
when,
sure.
when there's
No
no
need. Yeah,
self-interest.
definitely.
As soon as there's a self-interest, then we can't even see what the other person needs or what we need.
Mhm.
So are
I'm
you,
reminded of something Frederick J. Pearls wrote.
Oh, yeah,
Fritz
you mean
Perls?
Fritz Perls?
Fritz, yeah. He said, he wrote a book called In and Out of the Garbage Pail.
Yes.
That was the title of his autobiography. And it's a fantastic piece of work. I really recommend it to anybody. But he said at the beginning, like in the foreword, he simply said, I am not in this world to live up to your expectations, and you are not in this world to live up to my expectations. And he was establishing the boundaries, I think, of individuality in that unity. And it just makes great sense to me in connection with relationships I have with other people, because sometimes I will let someone be who he is. And there are other times I bring my garbage to that moment.
Mhm.
And that's never a happy scene.
Mhm.
But it's a matter of I'm as conditioned as anyone else,
Mhm.
and I'm identified. I get a sense of identity from the house I live in,
Mm.
the cars that I own, the people who are my friends.
Mhm.
They give me a sense of identity because they are responding to who they think I am. And as long as there's no conflict there, I'm quite happy with that. And there is usually no conflict unless somebody comes into the moment with these expectations of the other person, which in a happy relationship, that's a problem that can be resolved without bloodshed.
Mm.
Okay, yeah, that's true. Rosine, did you want to say something?
yeah, but it's probably confusing. And no, because you were saying that like if you are coming from a place of unity and practicing that the no self, that needs are met organically, but that's kind of assuming that both people are practicing this in a relationship. Because if one person is completely wrapped up in ego, then I wouldn't say they're really capable of meeting someone else's needs. like that organic thing.
Mm.
Yeah, if you took this down to an interpersonal level and looked at it there, you're right. If one person has a totally self-identified way of being and looking at the events and relationships in their life, and the other person is coming from a more holistic point of view, let's say, yeah, there's probably going to be more opportunities for conflict than for cooperation. It'll make cooperation much more difficult.
I mean, I think it's still a big advantage to not have the expectation from the other person, especially if the other person is completely incapable, and you know, one can take care of their own needs or from other places. That's like having to focus on one person is like crazy.
Mhm.
So, but then the question is that really then a relationship? Is there relating going on?
Mhm.
You know, is that really
Right.
relationship?
Right.
And that's something to look at very objectively.
Mhm.
It's relationship with a small r.
Right. It's so true.
I think the relationship changes as you become more and more aware of the fact that there is this much of a difference. And I've noticed in some of the relationships that I've had, they've just, it's not that I'm telling people to go to hell or drop dead. It's just that I'm not as involved as I was. In other words, I wasn't trying to change their ideas or trying to do something to make them something. You know, you just accept that some folks are the way they are. They have no inclination. You talk about non-duality, and they look at you as though you know, they look at you as like, you know, you're a picture of Picasso, some woman rising the staircase or some damn thing. They don't know what you're talking about. They don't want to know what you're talking about. That's not where they are. And one of the things that I've had to learn is to accept that and decide whether you want to move away or just step back a little bit.
Mhm.
But you know, I think we all can agree it's kind of a wild goose chase trying to change somebody.
Oh, no.
You know, they change when they want to change. So
And you were saying about organically getting your needs met, like I think that those kind of relationships you're describing, you get it, they do tend to just kind of melt away.
Yep.
And then meaningful relationships seem to organically slowly emerge. So I guess in a way it's
Yeah.
work he was
Yeah.
talking about organically.
and somehow the relationship changes too. And when I let go of wanting things out of that relationship, when I see myself wanting certain things out of it,
Mhm.
the degree that I can let go, it's not that the relationship becomes beautiful or anything, it just becomes different. It becomes more manageable. I don't know how to explain it, but it's,
We explained it very well.
yeah, pardon?
You just explained it very well.
Oh, that was an accident.
Organically.
Organically. See what happens in a moment?
That's right. You said something. I thought I could refer back to what he was saying. I don't know. I've lost now. This sense that there is an urge to unite, and to unite can only happen when there is an awareness of not being fully present, because I'm there from the viewpoint of the me. And from the viewpoint of the me, I am going to have expectations, and I am going to probably have judgments and opinions. And how is it possible? It's not possible to truly unite or to see clearly. And I've got to be able to see you clearly, just as he said, to see the facts of the situation, the facts of what's going on between us. Not how I wish it would be, but the actuality of what is, the what is of what's going on between us. And I can only see that literally with an empty mind, with the silence he was talking about, without all this stuff that's in our minds. Yes. Laura.
Well, I didn't want you to end the evening wondering why this new guy didn't say anything. So I wrote some notes down. And going back, tying it all together, but starting back where you started. On one hand, having world peace depends on human beings knowing the difference between what is and what they think, and the false self and the real self. It could leave one feeling hopeless, thinking that they won't, but in order to find the true self in yourself, you first need world peace. And I don't think that's not going to come anytime soon. Maybe it's moving in that direction. So
Well, wait a minute,
Yeah,
before you go
yeah.
further. It's just the
Just a
opposite.
clarification here.
It's the opposite, to
It's
find
the
world peace, we
opposite.
find it ourselves first. Okay. So, and then, I think there's different levels of realization. I mean, it's plausible just for a person to be aware of the possibility that there's a false self and a real self, and they're committed to finding it. But even for somebody who's very committed, and I spent 40 years doing this, and it was only until recently in my life I had glimpses of what presence is. And then then that process takes place where myself as a person, a thinking person, whose goal is to overcome lack and death, I see that presence is eternal and I'm eternal, but and I'm just at the point where I appreciate the value of that enough to want to keep pursuing it. What else was I going to say here is, well, that's basically it. And I enjoy sharing with everybody here. It's really
Good.
very
Good.
Thank you.
Thank
Good.
you. Thank you. So,
You have a closing thought?
well, it always seems to come back to this me and the inability to really connect unless there is this emptying of the me, and to have the awareness when the me is operating, when we think we're really in the moment and we're not. That in the moment, we are still coming from the past. Just to have an awareness of when that's going on. because every second that there's an awareness that that's going on, we're out of it. And so actually, it's very promising because we have the ability to shine the spotlight of awareness on all this.
Every second is up for grabs.
Every second is, well, every second that you're experiencing some kind of disorder, some kind of pain, some kind of confusion, some kind of fear or worry or hurt. That's the signal, that's the clue, that's the red flag that's saying the me is working here. Every moment that there's an awareness of a desire for something, a wanting of something, to see that what is in that, what is in that desire, what is in that wanting. And for the most part, to be able to see that it's again the me, but this time the me is wanting to expand itself. So he talks about coming from the home ground. We know from direct experience this home ground because we cannot be that which we see. So the very fact of our seeing, the very fact of awareness of all these things that are going on means that what's truly looking is that home ground, that true nature which we are. Consciousness, awareness, pure, non-conceptual awareness, free of any thinking, free of any thought, free of the me. Do you have a closing thought?
No, then you become a clear channel.
Yes.
Then you're tooling along with clear channel awareness, sailing through merrily, merrily, merrily. What is
Row,
it?
row, row your
Row
boat.
your row your boat merrily down the stream. Well, maybe that's what they were hinting at. Great conversation tonight, guys. Thank you all for participating.
Thank you so much for coming.
Look forward to seeing you next week.
You.
Yeah,
Have
Yes.
a good
Buonanotte
week.
tutti.
have a great
Right.
week.
Buonanotte, Ugo.
Have a good
Grazie.
week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Everyone.